I know I talk on this channel, especially a lot about A Course in Miracles. What a lot of people don't know is I've done transformational trainings for a long time, and I've worked with people privately, and I've done these trainings for thousands of students over the years. It's really fascinating to me. It's some of the, all the things I've learned when I share Course in Miracles with people and some of these lessons, I might put it in my own words. It's some of the most impactful things. Watching people's reactions or like how it really lands and hits them, and it affects them, moves them. So we're doing the lessons again in our house. My wife, Nick, I, all of us, and this is my fifth time doing them. And I love a lot of the different lessons. I think two of them that are really impactful I want to share with you today, and I feel like they're the answer. And for me, if I ever forget or I feel like, life gets heavy or dense, I come back to these often. And I want to share with you lesson 79, lesson 80 in the Course of Miracles. Now, for those that don't know, you do one lesson every day for the entire year. So this would be on day 79 and day 80. And one of the things Jesus is talking about here, which we could probably all have related to this. I've asked clients and people I've worked with over the years is like, what was 10 problems ago or 20 problems ago? And people go, they don't remember. Or what problem did you have this day last year? Because you had one something, probably more than one. And that shows us how, what Jesus asked in this lesson is like, when's the last time you were completely free of problems and at peace? So this first lesson gets into what the what the problem really is. Because if we don't know, we're not going to know the solution or even where to look for the solution. So lesson 79 is, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize it so it can be solved. A problem cannot be solved if you do not know what it is. I'll read to you a few paragraphs from the lesson. He says, a problem cannot be solved if you do not know what it is. Even if it's really solved already, you will still have the problem because you will not recognize that it's been solved. And then Jesus says, I love this line. He says, this is the situation of the world. The problem of separation from God, the problem of separation, which is really the only problem, has already been solved. Yet the solution is not recognized because the problem is not recognized. So if you think about it, and in that question, which we'll ask in this lesson, when's the last time you were completely free of problems and at peace? That shows us that our mind isn't really good at actually problem solving and might not even know what the problem is, which is why we always have a problem. So he goes on, he says, everyone in this world seems to have his own special problems, yet they are all the same and must be recognized as one if the one solution that solves them all is to be accepted. It's really interesting for me because even all the people I've ever worked with, I always, in myself included, I always try to remember this lesson that what is the problem? Everyone brings it, whether it's money, relationships, their health, all these different things. But what is the actual problem? Jesus is saying right here is that the problem of separation, which is really the only problem, has already been solved. And what Jesus is saying to us is that we actually don't have any problems outside of this one problem of separation from God, the belief that we can be separate from God. Now, as I share that with you, I want you to see if you can notice the trickery of the mind, because the mind's gonna be like, no, I really do. No, that situation with this person or that situation with money or whatever it is, it really is a problem. But if you listen as he goes on, he says, everyone in this world seems to have his own special problems, yet they are all the same and must be recognized as one if the one solution that solves them all is to be accepted. Who could see that a problem has been solved if he thinks the problem is something else? Even if he's given the answer, he cannot see its relevance. That is the position in which you find yourself now, all of us. You have the answer, but you're still uncertain about what the problem is. A long series of different problems seems to confront you, and as one is settled, the next one and the next arise. There seems to be no end to them. There's no time in which you feel completely free of problems and at peace. I mean, who could deny that this is their experience? How many problems have we had? It seems never ending. There are some people that literally live every waking moment of their life in problems. So What Jesus goes on in paragraph 4, he says, the temptation to regard problems as many is the temptation to keep the problem of separation unsolved. So it's a temptation of the ego so that we never really solve the problem. It's almost like the ego's like, look over here and distracts us from what's really going on over here. That's why in the lesson, I'm never upset for the reason I think. And one of the ego's mottos is seek but do not find. It never wants you to find the solution. So he goes on, he says, the temptation to regard problems as many is the temptation to keep the problem of separation unsolved. The world seems to present you with a vast number of problems, each requiring a different answer. And he goes on, he says, this perception places you in a position in which your problem solving must be inadequate and failure is inevitable. And he goes on in this lesson, says, think of all the problems the world presents. There's no one that can figure out a way to solve them all. It's almost, they're never ending. And he goes on here and he says, all this complexity is but a desperate attempt not to recognize the problem and therefore not to let it be resolved. If you could recognize that your only problem is separation, no matter what form it takes, you could accept the answer because you would see its relevance. So if we could actually see that, if you could recognize that your only problem is separation from God, no matter what form it takes, you could accept the answer because you would see the answer in every situation. Now, the next day, lesson 80, let me recognize, 79 was let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Lesson 80 is let me recognize my problems have been solved. If you're willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. Your one central problem has been answered and you have no other. Therefore, you must be at peace. Salvation, awakening, healing thus depends on recognizing this one problem and understanding that it's been solved. One problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact and you're ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for the awakening of all minds. But we have to perfect the lesson for ourselves, because if we don't, what Jesus says earlier in the text, he's like, we're no use to him in teaching other minds to wake up and heal. Your only problem has been solved. And he goes on, he says, you're entitled to peace today. He says, you have recognized your only problem. And he goes on, and this is really important. He says, a problem that has been resolved cannot trouble you. Only be certain you do not forget that all problems are the same. Now, I know a lot of people over the years would be, well, what about that? Wait, hold on. I know because it brings up, it's like, wait, the way I've been seeing the world, there seems to be so much chaos and horror in the world and all of this. And I'll say that all of it pertains to the body and the idea that we're separate as bodies in a world that's out there that has power to hurt us, which all of that is built on the idea of separation from God. So if you could just for a moment take these lessons into your heart and really apply them, don't be fooled by the appearances in your life of how the ego is always trying to sell you, this is the real problem. No, this one. And it always treats them like they're emergencies and the sky is falling. And see if you can connect with one problem, one solution, and not forget that as you go throughout your days. And it would be impossible for you not to be at peace. Give it a shot.